Welcome to another episode of AI Product Leader. Every week we shine a light on what it really takes to join the AI world. Real conversations with real AI builders, founders, product leaders, AI experts, technologists, and everything in between to understand where the AI world is right now and what that path might look like, whether you're building AI products or building an AI career. Have a question or topic? Email us at support@AI Career Boost to join in on the conversation. I'm your host, Polly Allen. I'm the founder of AI Career Boost, where I help product leaders break into and navigate the world of AI and thrive in AI careers. I spent my career in both the product management and software development sides of the development world, and I'm an ex-Alexa AI principal product manager, where I successfully launched the very first generative AI answers on Alexa back in 2020. I'm super excited to welcome our guest today. Vasuki Chilukuri is a dynamic product leader known for driving impact at scale. At Intel, she has pioneered the company's first as-a-service model for data center products, generating billions in revenue, and launched AI-driven manageability strategies for 200 million plus devices annually. Previously at Model N, Vasuki was instrumental in enabling a successful IPO by transforming products into scalable SaaS platforms and achieved 25% year-over-year growth. Absolutely incredible. Her expertise in product strategy, SaaS, and AI fuels her ability to deliver innovation and measurable results. She's currently serving as Fractional VP of Product at Ambient Enterprises, and I'm excited to hear more about that. But I'm so glad to have you on the show today, Vasuki. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Polly. I am super excited to be here and share my journey with you. Thank you so much.
Of course, yeah, I've been super excited too. I always love when I find someone who, like me, started their journey as in the more technical space. You started out as a software engineer for many years before transitioning into product, right?
That's right, Polly. I started out my journey as a software engineer and had the opportunity to work in many exciting projects. Later on, my personal life changes took me to a different place, and I started working as a business analyst in a startup called Model N, which was doing revenue management solutions in life sciences industry. And as part of business analyst, my job was to work with customers, understand their journeys, take that information, translate that into requirements so that we could do a custom implementation for them. I did that for a couple of years and then realized that I can do much more, a lot more, and do a better job by transitioning to product. And that's how I ended up in product management. So you see, I have been, if you kind of look at it as where do requirements come from, who builds them, and the group that kind of takes the product and puts it into production for the customer. I've been in the middle part as a software engineer, and I've been on the tail end as the person taking the product and putting it to use. All of those experiences helped me with the job that I do as a product manager, because I do understand the entirety of the experience and I can take that into consideration while doing my job in that role.
I don't know about you. I definitely found that I loved the mental challenge of the software engineering job, but I missed the people, the empathy, really like working out the people problem side of it. Like things often arrive as an engineer as a fully formed, like, this is what we want to build. It's like, how did they work this out? Is that kind of what drove you that side too?
Honestly, when you're looking for if you're looking for instant gratification, being on the end where you're taking the product and putting into production for a customer, see the customer use, that is the thing that gives instant gratification.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're in the engineering block of things, you do also get satisfaction from knowing that you're working on a piece of story. You looked at it from top to bottom and you were able to accomplish something. It gives you satisfaction. Product management is one of those areas where there is a lot more ambiguity built into the general structure that doesn't exist in engineering or the other aspects of the entire the execution. So this is where it's like you may have an idea that you want to put into motion, but it might not be the right time to prioritize. Even if you prioritized it, you may be only able to get partial feature implemented and there's still time remaining for the other one. So by the time the idea goes into development and then into production, it could be a long cycle. So for you to realize that something has been accomplished, you have to wait some time. And that's often a challenge.
Now, speaking of patience, you were working at Model N. It was an early stage startup, and you saw it through its IPO. It must have been like, as much as you need patience, you also need to hurry up and go. I'm sure you have some amazing stories from your time at Model N.
Yes, especially with the life sciences industry, we are a tiny company.
Mm.
I wouldn't say it's an early stage startup, but by the time I joined, it was, the MVP stage was done. It had a product in, it was generating about $40 million in revenue, but it was still very much a startup in the sense that we had a product and we were doing a lot of custom implementations for the biggest and baddest, leaders in the pharma and med dev businesses,
Yeah.
right? So there were certainly challenges because here's a tiny company that is creating a product that is going to touch every dollar of the revenue that these companies are going to generate. And they're live in different countries. And the customers are very demanding, right? If they say they need something, they have the power to say, this is what you need to put it in the product. So how do you manage the customers, still stay true to your product vision,
Yeah.
and drive your strategy and the definition and functionality, release after release? It could be a challenge.
Oh, for sure.
And it has been a challenge, right?
Oh, I imagine. Yeah, we're
So
always told, like, the product management gurus will tell you, oh, don't let the customers tell you what they need. You need to discover it and you need to like have your own vision about it. But yeah, sometimes it's a lot harder than others to actually make that happen.
So there are several sources of information that you use, right, to create your product definition and the features. Definitely customer input and feedback is one source. You do have your product strategy in terms of where you wanted the organic product to go. And
Yeah.
then you have company strategy, right? Every year, depending on how the market changes, the company comes up with a strategy. They want some big bets to be
Yeah.
made. So how does that influence what you need to do within the product? So all of these influences come together and finally materialize in terms of what you want to create as part of the product.
Yep. Definitely road mapping feels sometimes like an art and a science to get it to weave all together.
That's the fun part.
Yeah, exactly. It would be boring otherwise if you could just do an equation to figure it out. And so
Right.
since then, you've been working a lot more in data-enabled or AI related technology, particularly at powerhouses like Intel. Can you tell us what are those most surprising things you'd found out of moving into that space?
Intel is a different type of company. It's not a software product company. It's a silicon company. And the primary products that Intel, makes revenue on are what we call as hardware. These are silicon products, right? These are chips like CPUs, GPUs, etc. And then we also do platforms.
Mm.
So when we talk about AI solution stack, if you kind of unpack it, you
Yeah.
start with the data layer. And as part of the data layer, you have data itself, the data source, which is the raw data, data storage implications, right? Is it instantaneous data? Is it some kind of counter data or odometers that you need to maintain, which plays into data storage? Then there is data interfaces,
Mhm.
right? Who's consuming this data? Is it some other component within this platform or the PC, if I have to kind of pick one product?
Yeah.
My last job was in client computing, which is nothing but what we call as personal computers, right? And I was primarily responsible for manageability solutions in commercial segment, which is
Mm.
the PCs that you get as part of your enterprise, as part of your job.
So your
If you
big
see,
company orders PCs for everyone in the company kind of thing.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So we call it a business PC for part of this conversation, but basically the firmware and the BIOS and the security and the the kind of software, everything that you put in a business PC is much heavier than you would in a consumer PC.
Yeah.
So the specs for a business PC are a lot more involved than a
Mm.
consumer PC, let's say,
Is
right?
it
And
mostly
so
about the
that's the
security the
implications.
companies want? Like companies want heftier security, lockdowns, et cetera? Or is it also about like the kinds of
It's
programs they're running?
both. Security, of course, is the primary consideration, right? But there are all of these manageability aspects. When we talk about manageability, basically what that is the speed with which you can detect a problem, fix a problem, and get the PC running is what manageability is about, right? So what do you do if the operating system is down, and what do you do when the operating system is up, right?
Mm.
How fast can you get to it, whatnot, and so on. And with COVID, the change for everybody to work remotely and hybrid work is here to stay, right? The pace at which people needed these solutions and the efficiency component factor went up dramatically.
Yeah.
So this is where, people started innovating and AI came into the picture. And of course, once ChatGPT came in, people just saw the possibility and the innovation just took off. So this is the space that I was in. And this is where, my first contributions to the AI solution started. I was in a space where we are talking about data sources. It's
Uh-huh.
the platform that is generating the data. And a
Hmm.
platform generates thousands of data.
Right.
It exposes thousands of data at any given point of time. But the question is, how useful is the data? And who's going to use the data in what way, shape, and form, right?
Yeah. Right.
The other challenge that comes into the picture is at a company like Intel is silicon roadmap is 3 to 4 years long,
Yeah.
meaning if I'm working on something today in December 2024, I'm likely working on a product that is going to hit the market in 2028.
Wow. It's still that
That's
slow a revolution right now. Yeah.
it's still that long,
Yeah.
right? Or maybe best case 2027,
Yeah.
right? It's still 3 years out. And with
Huh.
the way the market is changing and how innovation is changing, it's very hard to predict, what to expect 3 years down the road
There's 3 months
and
is tough.
be prepared for it today,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So that's the challenge. And I was in planning and strategy role, which means it is my job to predict the market trends
Mhm.
and figure out what needs to be put into the silicon today. That's where we are. And so, when we are looking at what needs to be put in the platform, we have to talk about the solution stack for a little bit in here. You have hardware. On top of that, you have what you call firmware. And
Yep.
within firmware, there are layers, right? You have microcode, you have, other things, you have BIOS. On top of that, sit operating system, and then you have application layer.
Yeah.
So the things that Intel controls here is the hardware and then some aspects of firmware. Once you get to BIOS and up, Intel doesn't control that.
Right.
So this is where it's kind of like you have to understand how BIOS consumes the information, operating system consumes the information, application layer consumes the information. And also there are components within beneath the stack that are looking to consume the information as well. So you might be saying, hey, data sources, there are fantastic technologists and engineers at Intel. They can come up with what data to expose. What are you doing in that space as a product manager,
Yeah.
right?
How does it look?
Yes, that is true. We have fantastic engineers and technologists who know what data to put out there and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the big picture. There
Mm.
is such thing called feature engineering.
Mm.
You have to be in a position to anticipate how this data is going to be
How
used
it's going to be used.
and think about the hypothetical problem. It may be hypothetical at this point of time, or it may be true. I mean, you can make a good guess about, how a particular pieces of data could be used and what are the problem statements that could be solved,
Yeah.
right? And then you kind of do an analysis of, is this data that we're producing good enough? Is it of quality? Are there sufficient elements within here to be able to make an inference?
Yeah.
If you made the inference, if you're able to make the inference, can you get to the next level, next click down within the inference? I can give you an example.
Yeah.
This is where, let's say your computer is facing some sluggishness, right?
Hmm.
And obviously there is some sort of software that is monitoring the system, AI software, for example, and it is able to infer that there is some congestion within memory,
Hmm.
and that's why the computer is slow down, right? Um, Now the next question is, is that all? There is memory capacity, memory bandwidth, memory latency. Which of these is the problem? Because the operating system and a lot of solutions tell you about memory capacity. Your task manager will tell you this is your memory capacity, this is what's used, this is free, and so on. So that information is pretty visible. But what about bandwidth? What about latency? What about the other factors in memory? Can you do the click down? Do we have the data to understand, what is the actual problem? And then the next question would be, how do you provide a remedy to this problem? Is how do you know that, maybe you need additional data to tell about what to do as the next step. So this is how you kind of dig down
Yeah.
through that use cases and feature engineering to understand if the sources of data that exist on the platform are generating data that is consumable by the ecosystem. And in this case, the ecosystem is OEMs, it's operating system vendors, it's software vendors, and you name it.
Yeah.
So that's one type of challenge at a company like Intel,
Now, is it a
right?
case of going about looking at this and saying, hey guys, like you've done a first pass, but these are the problems you're going to run into. Like, let's go back and revisit this. Like, would you have to bring the engineers like, hey, here's all the failure cases for what you've done so far?
We would, right? This is where it's kind of like either the OEMs, OSVs, ISV, the ecosystem is working on the solutions and
Hmm.
coming back to us saying, hey, can you give us this data? Or there is some innovation happening within the company, right? And we understand that there are pieces of data that needs to be landed. Or there's somebody like me studying, market trends and understanding, hey, this is where the ecosystem is moving. These are the type of things they're innovating on today, which means they'll be here 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road. And these are the type of things that we need to expect. So let's plan for it,
Yeah.
right? So those are the different ways in kind of figuring out and slicing and dicing. Because honestly, with silicon products and whatnot, if you miss something that
Yeah.
hardware has to generate, like maybe a new sensor is needed, or maybe a few new fuse is
Right.
needed. You're
Yeah.
waiting another,
Cycle.
another cycle to get
Yeah.
it. So it's not
Oh,
an easy problem to handle. So we err on the side of excess than not,
yeah.
generally
Trying
speaking,
to think of everything.
to deal with that.
It
Yes.
makes total sense. Well, thanks for breaking down the life of an Intel PM. It's so fascinating to know. Of course, it sounds very technical. Do you feel like your computer science and engineering like background was that essential? Was it helpful? How do you think of that technology background in terms of that role?
Need to be technical at some level, and having a technology background definitely helps when you're interacting with people, because most of the people in these type of spaces, whether you're talking to an OEM, you're talking to somebody at Microsoft, who's the operating system vendor, everybody is technical.
Yeah.
And so having a technical background helps. I'm not saying you need to have an engineering degree, to have it.
Yeah.
You can learn,
Yeah.
self-learn, just spend
Gotcha.
time and learn. It can be learned.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. I'd love to
Yeah.
turn to that next. So, obviously, we were working really in depth with some very technical products, but just working in AI in general, you've experienced like kind of a breadth of different kinds of PM roles in that space. How did you get started when you were like, I want to know more about AI in this space?
So in my case specifically, my job and the market trends force me to move in a certain direction. That is how I started. So a lot of the work that I did, or what naturally fell into my lap as part of the job, this is to do with the traditional, machine language algorithms and so on, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about linear regression, lightweight GBP, that type of stuff. So I had to learn, because that is where we were moving, and the people and the partners in the ecosystem that I work with are moving. But I always there comes in personal interest too, right? Wherein I didn't know much about Gen AI or large language models and so on, and so I was very unfamiliar with the happenings within that space. I tried to do my own learning on the side. It was taking too long, so I went ahead and ended up signing up for a class. Holly's AI Career Boost Blueprint in Gen AI is an excellent class. I would recommend it.
Thanks.
So it's kind of comprehensive, that brought those of us who were in the class up to speed within 6 weeks, which is amazing. And once you kind of know the foundations and basic, it gives you enough to get started, and you just can roll with it. Now, those concepts don't feel so foreign anymore. And it kind of helped me to get a much better picture of what the ecosystem is doing, with the data that we are generating. So it kind of tied in as well.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks so much for the shout out. I know it's been really useful, both in terms of tying some ends together. You've had a lot of experience getting to that, like the deployment of these systems, et cetera. And then now you're leveraging that expertise in your new position, right? As a fractional VP of Product at Ambient Technologies. I'd love to hear more about what you're doing there.
At Ambient Enterprises, our mission is to empower everyone with clear ownership of their data assets and provide the ability to secure, meaning protect, control, and profit from them. And what do I mean by that, right? So
Yeah.
if you look at the recent headline news, 8 newspapers have sued OpenAI and
Mhm.
Microsoft for using copyrighted information to train their GPT LLMs.
Yeah.
Now, think about it for a second. This is copyrighted material, but what could have these newspapers done differently?
To like
I
protect
mean,
themselves. Yeah.
yeah, to protect themselves and then not be in this situation. What kind of solutions exist in the marketplace? All the solutions that exist right now, it's like there are external layers that are created around data, like identity access management or digital rights management.
Yeah.
There is nothing that the data itself, can do to self-protect or manage itself autonomously.
Without losing visibility.
And
They can put it
yes,
behind paywalls or something, but then they don't necessarily get what they're.
once it's out, it's out.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
can't establish your ownership. You can't, they're certify that it's yours. I mean, there are a lot of aspects of data that come into the picture that you cannot just prove today, and that's the reality of this. And as data becomes central to decision making, to innovation, value creation, we need better solutions than what exists in the market today, and
Yeah.
this is where ambient technologies play. I
Oh,
mean, think about it. Another news article that says a major automaker took your driving data and sold it to
mm-hmm.
insurance companies, and the end result of that is your insurance rate has doubled.
Huh.
That's
It's
my data,
right.
right? Data that I'm generating,
Used
but
against
then
you.
used against me. So how do I protect myself? I mean, if you look at the terms and conditions, there
Mhm.
is no option for us to do any other kind of play. You
Yeah.
upload something to Facebook, Facebook's terms and conditions say they have full ownership of that data or full control of that data, and they can use the data for inference purposes, training purposes,
Yeah.
whatever purposes. You don't have a say in here.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so
So critical.
and so there is room for innovation, and that's why we say at Ambient, we want to empower everyone and provide clear ownership for their data so that they can protect, control, and profit from it. There is
Yeah.
this whole notion of digital data asset economy
Mm.
coming into the picture.
Yeah.
There is innovation happening in data co-ops and so on. So, this is where solutions are needed to enable securing the data assets with resilience and autonomy.
Yeah, definitely. I
And
think in
that's
2025 and beyond, it's going to be huge because I'm seeing in enterprise, a lot of the problems they're having with adoption, either their customers adopting their products or even internally, is people feel kind of icky about using these systems. They know they're built on
Mhm.
stealing other people's data. And even when we signed up for Facebook in whatever year, let's not date ourselves, there was no notion that our information would be used this way when we agreed to that,
Yep.
right? So it feels
Yep.
really disingenuous on the part of these companies to just take it and use it.
Right. Data breaches, misuse of information, unauthorized access of data. This is becoming systemic. These are systemic issues, and we need a solution. And this is where ambient technologies, are coming into play.
Oh man, that's super exciting, super exciting. And you're working on the forefront of this. It's just amazing to see the kind of innovations that might be possible.
Yep.
Fantastic. So it's nearly at the end of the show. We have time for one more section, which is shout outs. Suzuki, do you have any shout outs you want to give and ways for people to get more information or get in connection with you?
I have two shout outs. The first one is if you're exploring data ownership, agency, and sovereignty strategies, or if you're looking to transform and innovate your data asset management, or if you're just looking to transform your passive resource into a secure, self-governing asset, please reach out to us at info@ambiententerprises.com. Ambient Enterprises, one word,
Mm.
or you can simply reach out to me on
Oh,
LinkedIn, and
great.
I would
People
be happy to help.
Fantastic. We'll include those in the show notes. That's awesome. On my side, I'd like to plug, please sign up for the AI Career Boost weekly newsletter. We explore stories like Vasuki's and her career, along with the latest advancements in industry for product leaders. We also have our free masterclass coming up, the path to product leadership. If you're noticing product management is changing, like most people are, and you want to know what skills you need to lead and succeed in the AI era, please come to our free masterclass. We're holding it this month, and the details are in the show notes for that as well. Well, that's another episode of AI Product Leader. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Vasuki, for joining us. Seriously, it was such an
Thank
amazing, compelling story about how product management works at these different levels with data and AI projects. I really appreciate you joining and sharing.